Dianoga in my trash compactor? It's more common than you think. More at 11. Welcome, sentients of the galaxy, to Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. I am your Jedi General, Ian, and joining me for the first time is Imperial Army Commander Jon. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Ian. How you doing?
I'm doing good, especially since we managed to actually get something up and running for the hours we put into it. It's it's nice to be actually recording something at the moment.
You'd think that professionals like you and I, who work in basically film and television, would know how to set up equipment or properly test things before recording.
See, that would be true. However, I don't really call what we do work. It's more like exist and push buttons.
That's fair.
What exactly are we doing here, Jon? We have just announced that we're doing a Star Wars podcast. Why and who should care?
I don't think anyone should really care.
That's true.
I barely care.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of discussions between ourselves about Star Wars. I think it'd be fun to share it with you, or even hear back and hear about how wrong we are about our opinions, which we are quite often.
Well, and that's the thing, too. They are opinions, and while I know I am going to be wrong many times, I will still vigorously defend them as though I am right.
They are wrong opinions, that is correct.
We both have these discussions about Star Wars on a near daily basis, which is kind of weird, because I don't think it was a thing that we really did a lot when we first met, and it kind of just morphed into this realizing that we were both really into Star Wars and the world and the universe, and it just kind of started taking off, and we've been inspired by at least I've been inspired by a lot of other podcasts out there, and thought we'd try our hand on it. And you know what? If you, me, and like 4 other people are the only ones that listen to this and get enjoyment out of it, then that's great. That's fine. You know, we're doing this because we want to, not because we're trying to one-up anybody out there or take over anything.
Not what you said in the show notes.
Now, what show notes are you looking at? You're not supposed to look at the top secret show notes that say we're secretly plotting to become the #1 podcast of all podcasts.
That's true. Shoot, I forgot.
How dare you, sir?
Unprofessional.
Good sir.
Absolutely unprofessional.
God, now they all know. It's not like we can go back and edit this. You're an awful, awful human being. Well, we have all these thoughts about Star Wars, but we should probably, let people know that we are fans, and we have been for a while, and our opinions are just as valid as anybody else's, right? Totally? Absolutely? He's shaking his head no. That's... What we should do is probably get into our backgrounds of, how Star Wars has really affected us, because it has, I think. It's affected a lot of people, You hear stories every day about people who are affected by the story and the meaning, and the reason why it's become so popular, I think, is because it has a lot of universal...
No pun intended. I'm assuming.
Well, if I wanted to make a pun, I'd say galactic. Okay. Yeah. So it has this galactic... understandable story, and it's been around for 50 years going into...
Fake fan doesn't know.
Ow. Yeah. Not off the top of my head. I'm not a dictionary, but it's multi-generational, it's cultural, it's worldwide,
multi-million dollars.
So it's something that affects a lot of people, and it's affected us as well. So getting into that, what was your first memory of Star Wars? Where did this journey begin for you?
Seeing all the movies in reverse order as a child probably skewed me in different perspective of how the movies were.
That's a unique way of doing it.
As a kid, I had no idea that there was a continuous story of this. I just knew that there were Star Wars movies. But my first memory was watching a Laserdisc of Return of the Jedi at my buddy's house while building Legos, and it became a tradition that we watched Star Wars while building Legos and trying to build the ships we saw in the movie.
That's pretty rad. I'm gonna show my age here a little bit. I know what a Laserdisc is. I don't think I've ever seen one.
This Laserdisc player was completely out of date. It wasn't a top-of-the-line sort of thing. They were just cheaper to rent at the library, which I think you rent things for free, so I don't know how that excuse worked. But this was just before the VHSs were re-released with the ones with just the heads, the Darth Vader head for A New Hope, Empire, or Stormtrooper for Empire, Yoda for Empire?
Yoda for Empire,
yeah.
Stormtrooper was...
And then Yoda was Return?
No, Yoda was Empire, Stormtrooper was A New Hope, and Vader was... it doesn't matter.
Who knows? VHS is really, technology.
It doesn't matter.
But it was before the special editions were released, that was for sure.
Dig it up somewhere. Who's the fake fan now? Both of us. We both don't know. So you said you watched the movies in reverse. So which one did you start with? I'm assuming
Return.
At the time it would be Return.
Yes. The big spoiler in the middle of Empire Strikes Back wasn't that big of a surprise for me because I watched a whole movie about that already being a thing.
Right. Vader and Luke, like all that father-son stuff is gone over quite a lot in Return. Kind of ruins the surprise.
Yeah, I was kind of confused why they were bringing it up when, they already knew in the movie that I saw.
I think that's an experience that's pretty, I'm not going to say unique to only you, but you're the first person that I've heard, tell me, and I looked at you, I think the first time and said, what is wrong with you? Did nobody teach you correctly?
This is true.
Now, I say that, but I was raised on the special editions, so I've been wrong since the beginning.
Yes, and I'm glad you're man enough to admit it.
Yeah, well, it's I wouldn't have been if you asked me that question a couple years ago, or maybe even last month. But I've come around. I've come around to the idea. I've come around to the idea of Ewoks as well.
Good.
That's your fault.
You're welcome.
That's your fault. You wouldn't leave me alone about them.
Ewoks are people too.
That's
not
necessarily true.
I'm not gonna touch that one.
Oof. Yeah. No. Let's not get into the race relations of the galaxy. We don't have a big enough fan base to survive that yet.
That's probably be our next episode. We're gonna tackle it. We're gonna fix it.
We're gonna fix Star Wars race relations in episode 2 of our no name. Well, we have a name, but our no known podcast. I can't English. Well, that's a pretty good first memory. It's a good way to start off your Star Wars experience. My earliest memory of Star Wars is not knowing or really caring what Star Wars was, but being interested, and it's what led me to it. So I remember being really young, like probably single digits, and over at a friend's house, and there were a lot of kids there. It was like maybe a daycare sort of situation where that was the only mom home. And they had those VHSs, the ones you were talking about, the original non-special edition VHSs that came
I
out.
still feel really bad that I cannot remember which heads were on those stupid VHSs.
I think we're 3 for 3 on which heads they were, just not which boxes they were on.
I think Yoda was on A New Hope. That makes the most sense at this point.
Wow.
I mean, you might as well get them all wrong.
That's true. It went Yoda on A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi on Empire, and Porkins on
Too soon.
Too soon for Porkins.
Yeah.
Porkins for Return. Bring him back.
You said earlier you were brought up on the special edition ones. So
true.
Why didn't you watch these VHSs?
Well, that's the thing. So I was at the house, and they had those. I remember the covers specifically, and they were playing A New Hope on the TV, but I had never heard of Star Wars, and I came in late, so it was just a bunch of guys in stormtrooper armor running around in this space hallway, very clean hallway, shooting at a guy and a girl also dressed in white. I didn't know why they were fighting each other. They were wearing the same team colors.
Makes sense.
But, I remember going home that day and asking my dad, hey, what's the movie with the guy, he breathes funny, and there are white soldiers that shoot guns, and Luke Sluicer, I don't remember his name. And my dad has always been a big sci-fi guy, he's also a nerd, but he's more of the like, I'm a nerd and I can make money off of it type of nerd. Smart people, actual employed individuals with degrees and lives. But so he went out and got the VHS set, but apparently this was at the time where the special editions were already out, and he went out and got those VHSs, and I still have 2 of them sitting in I have all 3 of them. I don't know where the cover for one of them is, but I have them sitting in my bookcase at home. So my first real time experiencing Star Wars, it was from the special editions, which is why as I grew older and, everybody was going, Han shot first, and, why would you put these, why would you change the song at the end of Return? I had no idea what they were talking about.
It's unfortunate, because it's one of the best songs.
Yub nub, my brother. Yub nub. Well, so that was really my first experience. Talking about being kids, the toys, you couldn't escape the toys. They're everywhere. Everybody had one. All your friends. We had our own too, I imagine. What was your first kind of toy or collectible? I call them collectibles now because I'm an adult, and that's the only way I can get away with going to the store and spending way too much money on 6-inch Black Series figures. But that's neither here nor there.
When we came up with the show notes and whatnot, I was thinking about what my first toy was. And I realized what I had set my mind on saying it was actually wasn't that. The first toy that I thought I remembered was a Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker from the old Kenner line that belonged to my brother, who had a ton of Star Wars stuff up in our garage. He had a Millennium Falcon that they would never let me play with, but I snuck a Luke Skywalker out and would throw him on our roof because we live in Southern California. We have Spanish tiling on our roofs, and if you were lucky, that figure would slide down the roof, and it was fun. And now he's still up there, I believe, at my parents' house.
So we could literally, if we had the desire, get up right now, go to your parents' place, get a ladder, and there's a 30% chance that there's going to be a Luke up there?
There's a 50% chance that there's a Luke up there.
That's right. We don't get rain here, so.
That's true. I thought that was my first toy, but then I realized when we were talking, when I was talking earlier in this podcast about Legos, that all of my Legos as a child were stored in a R2-D2 cooler, like you used to see at 7-Eleven.
That's rad.
And I forgot that was it because I brought it over to a friend's house to play in their garage, and the next day they moved and took it with them, and they claimed that I had given it to them, and I blocked that memory out of my brain.
Oh, yeah. So you were, just as you smuggled Luke Skywalker away from your brother and claimed him as your own,
right?
They stole this R2 cooler from you.
Yeah, but
kid politics, that's how it works.
As a kid who didn't know anything about Star Wars, it didn't mean anything to me until like a couple years later when my brother was back from college asking where his R2-D2 was.
That must have been awkward.
Yeah.
Was he asking where his Luke was?
No. I don't, they might still be at my parents' house. I don't think he would give them to his kids.
That might be something we need to investigate at a later date, because
there's some cool stuff in there, like a Darth Vader's hibernation chamber thing.
Ooh, rad.
That's really cool.
Yeah, if there's anything we need, it's more random Star Wars memorabilia.
Yeah. I know his Millennium Falcon is in better condition than my 3 1/4-inch Millennium Falcon. Were you lucky enough to get any starships for your little dudes?
Yeah. Well, I distinctly remember having an X-Wing and a TIE Fighter, like the weirdly off blue, like Return of the Jedi style TIE Fighter, where it's like it's not really gray, it's not really blue, it's kind of a weird color. I messed those things up like hardcore. Like,
did you break the wings off the
constantly
the TIE Fighter?
Constantly, and they were designed to come off, and I don't understand how you can mess something up that's designed to come apart. but I did. Like, I tried to put them in backwards. My dad was always like gluing the thing back together, and I remember the top of the cockpit for the shield, the windshield, I guess. You got space shield? There's no wind. I don't know. But that part of the X-Wing always came off. And then eventually the top of the TIE fighter came off, and it's just these really like junky looking, the stickers were coming off and everything, really junky looking toys by the end of their lifespans. I think my first toy, it was either the like G.I. Joe style, the big like G.I. Joe action figure, 12-inch, style Luke Skywalker's, and it was the Empire Strikes Back Luke. So he's like in his flight suit, but he has the blue saber.
Doesn't look like Mark Hamill from the first movie.
No toy looked from that era looked anything like the characters from the film.
I don't know, that Luke Skywalker figure, the Tatooine one, where he's barrel-chested and his like tunic's half off, looked a lot like the original movie poster.
The original, that's where they drew all their inspiration from. The He-Man style. Everybody was buffing those toys. Like, it made it seem like all the people who inhabited the Star Wars universe were just like going to the gym and just getting swole, like Ben Swolo. The other early toy memory I have, so it was either that, or it was, I have a cousin named Lucas. So, Luke, there you go. For Christmas one year when we were little kids, we're close in age, we were all at my grandmother's house, and I'm not even sure if it was my toy, which is why I'm not sure if this is a right memory. I think they were both his, but somehow or another, we ended up with 2 lightsabers. Like, you can get them now at the store anywhere, the ones that have they swing out with the tubes and the clashing noises, and like, high end for the time. And my grandmother had this super dark basement, and it was like reenacting the scene at the end of Return of the Jedi where Luke is fighting Vader, because one was green, one was red. We would like turn them off and hide in the dark and turn them back on. The glow would just be the only thing illuminating the basement, and it was really, really, really fun. And I remember that to this day. That kind of stuff that sticks with you, and that's the power Star Wars has. Would you agree on that?
Merchandising?
Absolutely. Star Wars, the power of merchandising. I was going to say the power to create fond memories, but
I mean, they made those lightsabers just strong enough to last until you bought another lightsaber.
That's fair. I'm a little ashamed to say that as an adult, someone who has control over his own bank account and goes to work to earn money, I have purchased more toy lightsabers as an adult than I ever owned as a child. Slightly ashamed of that, especially because they're the ones you get at Disneyland, where you actually stand in a line and they hand you the little saber and you slide all the bits on and build your own,
Well, that's part of every Jedi's training.
Right, of course. And I am a practiced Jedi Master, as you are aware. I'm not. I'm really not.
He says wearing a Darth Vader shirt.
Hey! I may be all about the light side, but the dark side's got the cool stuff. Are you wearing your Rebel shirt today?
No, this is an Imperial propaganda shirt.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I got nervous though. I thought it wasn't.
Yeah, he's glancing down at his shirt, going, "Oh crap! Am I going to make a fashion faux pas here? Can't call him out." Going through our nerd cred here, we've been kind of asking the basic questions, and the questions get no more basic than what your favorite film is. And I think I'm going to start on this one, because I think I know what yours is, and it's definitely not conventional. Whereas mine very much is conventional. I'm not, again, I don't know which one yours is. It's one of 2. I'm not sure which. I have to go with Empire Strikes Back. And I know that's the thing to say. It's everybody thinks Empire's the best because, it's the best movie cinematically, and it has the best movie structure, and all of that stuff I, for the most part, agree with, because, you know, I have a background in studying film. And I study film. Let's get the pretentiousness out of the way real right quick. But what I really like about Empire is, as a kid, watching Empire Strikes Back, that's where the Jedi kind of mindset really seeped in for me. You got to see Luke waving around the blue lightsaber. You got to see him face down Darth Vader. You got to meet Yoda and all of the Yoda-y wisdom that he imparts on Luke. And it just, you know, it's the kind of thing that gives you goosebumps. Like watching The Last Jedi recently. For how many times did we see it? Like 5?
I would say 4 times, and the 5th time was in that ridiculous 4DX, which was not a way to watch a movie.
Right. The 4DX thing. But watching The Last Jedi, Yoda coming on screen and his theme playing and the conversation between him and Luke, that gave me goosebumps every time because it brought me back to Empire. And that's totally what that scene was supposed to do. And, you know, shameless pandering to nostalgia, sure, but I still loved it. And just that feeling of the Jedi way, that kind of was... Watching Empire was when that really impacted me as a kid. That's the main reason why it's my favorite movie. So, I have 2 guesses in my head for yours.
I want to know what you think.
I think you're going to say Rogue One. It's either Rogue One or it's Return.
It's Return.
It's Return. Return, your first one.
Return, yeah, exactly. It was the first movie that I remember watching of the Star Wars trilogy, and it was the one that I love to go back to. I love the Ewoks.
Yeah.
I know, unpopular opinion.
It's
allegedly.
You know what? Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't think it's nearly as unpopular as people say it is. You brainwashed me. I was on the anti-Ewok side for a long time, but yeah, and I liked it because it had the Ewok, whole Ewok attack. I loved watching the Imperial troops running around. I mean, Empire Strikes Back, you get the big invasion on Hoth, but you don't really see the stormtroopers doing anything there, except for wandering around and cleaning stuff up. I don't think you even see a snowtrooper shoot. I don't know. I should know these things. Whatever. I love the Ewok song at the end, in the original, not the special edition. But it was the first time that that what really drew me into it. Though your other guess, Rogue One, I loved Rogue One, and it was solely because it was the first movie that wasn't Jedi centered. Right.
Where we weren't following a guy that could use magical powers to do stuff. Well, we kind of worked. You know, Chirrut is just not Chirrut is Chirrut. I can't explain things.
Yeah.
But I love the idea that we got to see what the common man and woman were doing in the galactic conflict, and I was really excited about that.
And hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that. Now, as my previous answer gave me away, I'm very much a Forcey fanboy. I like the concept of the Force. I have strong opinions about how it's used in certain shows and movies and contexts and games, but you know, you're right. It's fun to see that a different side of things. We're not always seeing the same part of the galaxy, and hopefully we're going to get a little bit more of that with these non-saga movies that are coming out. We went over the favorite film part, so it's time for the big generic question number 2.
Would you say that this is simplifying, like an easier question, or a more in-depth question? Ian, who is your favorite character? Is that more harder to say than what your favorite movie is? Because a favorite movie, there's a lot less choices.
That's true.
Where the characters all over the place.
It's not as hard for me because as of the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and even one line of dialogue in The Force Awakens, my favorite character has been in every major Star Wars movie. and that is Obi-Wan
R2-D2,
Kenobi. Oh, yeah, R2-D2, absolutely. No, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan. He is my icon for the Jedi. Like, when I watch the films and I think about, who's the best Jedi in all these films, it for me it's Obi-Wan. You see him go. He really has his own strong, powerful presence in all the films. Alec Guinness is amazing at playing the old mystical, wise hermit. Ewan McGregor is my favorite part of the prequel trilogy. The legend of Obi-Wan permeates everything in Star Wars just as much as, I argue, just as much as the Skywalkers. And I love the attitude. I love the snark. Obi-Wan's got jokes, let me tell you. He's got jokes in nowhere was this more heightened than it was in the Clone Wars. Sassy Obi-Wan is my favorite. But, he's got the comedy aspect down. He's got the wisdom aspect down. He's a kick-ass character. And he has a character arc that you can really kind of feel for him. A lot of the other Jedi we see, at least on screen, you've got Luke Skywalker, you've got Yoda, and you've got Obi-Wan. Arguably Mace Windu. Everybody else is just kind of background fodder. And Obi-Wan's character arc, and I guess Anakin Skywalker too. Nobody don't get out the torches and pitchforks. I mentioned him. I'm sorry.
Force spikes.
Force spikes. Yeah, don't get out the torches and force spikes. Obi-Wan's journey is one that is varied. You're with him for a long time, and you can really kind of feel his emotional struggle going from losing his master, having to train this boy he's not sure about, learning to trust him like a brother, being betrayed, having to essentially look over his son and teach him and learn about what things in the Jedi were wrong, what things in the Jedi were right. And it's a story I love, and I'm kind of babbling. I'd like to get more in depth into character stuff, on a later date. But strong opinions, lots of talking. But to answer the question, Obi-Wan Kenobi, my favorite character of all time. That's the thing. So since you brought this on me, and I babbled for a while, let's hear you babble now. Who is your favorite character?
It'd easily be Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh, we're going extended universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he'll get a film one day. Probably not. But when after seeing the original trilogy backwards, and just before the extended special editions came out, I want an extended edition.
Release the extended cut.
I remember going to my local library and just looking for Star Wars books, and I came across Timothy Zahn's novels, little Thrawn trilogy. I also came across cassettes of the audiobook versions of it, so I would check out the books, check out the audiobooks, stare at the covers while listening to the books, because I was not the target range for reading this novel. I still can't pronounce Thrawn's real name, and I'm impressed by people that can.
I don't think anybody really can.
Timothy Zahn.
He's the ultimate authority on that.
I've always been more Imperial side of things, and being able to get a story that's kind of from an Imperial's perspective, even though he's an Imperial that's also an outsider, though. I really, really enjoyed that, and I was super bummed when, after Disney bought Lucasfilm, that all the EU canon was kind of pushed aside, and I became so happy when they found out that they were going to bring him back for Rebels.
How do you feel about him in Rebels, his appearance now?
I love him in Rebels. I feel like they did him justice for the medium in which they brought him back. I don't think they could have had him bring him back in a Disney XD show, being the villainous mastermind he was in the original novels, because I don't think that would play well for children. But I think they did a really good job of balancing his intelligence and his tactical abilities in that show, while still being able to make that show, still make him be clearly a villain.
Right.
I know you and I have had discussions about heroes before, where I've said that the scariest villains to me are the ones that truly believe they're doing the right thing, which Thrawn is 100%. And with the new novel that came out,
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah, the new novel that came out, they kind of retcons his history. It's kind of made clear that he's joined the Empire to gain resources to fight something else. They never really say what it is. Maybe it's the Yuzon Vong. It's probably not the Vong.
Yeah,
I doubt it's the Vong. It's probably Wookiees.
It's probably Wookiees?
Probably more Wookiees.
More Wookiees. Stronger, taller Wookiees coming from the unknown regions to kill everybody.
Exactly.
One of the things I'd like to do, and I think you agree, one of the things we'd like to do with this podcast, with General Grievances, is not limit ourselves to just the films, just official media. We want to explore all of Star Wars and all of what it has to offer, and going outside of the non-film, non-television media, there's so much there that you can still absorb and enjoy and bring into your Star Wars discussions. So what is a non-film, non-motion non-film, non-TV piece of media or fandom that you really enjoy, that you think is your favorite bit about being a Star Wars fan who knows about all that stuff?
This choice for me was kind of similar to how I came on Return of the Jedi being my favorite Star Wars film. For me, a lot of the joy of Star Wars is the nostalgia, and not just for those films, but for the things that I was excited about when I was a kid, just learning about Star Wars. But my favorite non film or television thing was the old LucasArts games. They were like really the first video games I ever got into, where was Dark Forces. I was going over to a neighbor's house and just playing that nonstop, or switching off between X-Wing and TIE Fighter, or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I think it's X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had that one.
Life isn't fun until you've tried to beat Rebel Assault 1 or 2 with a joystick, especially the non-flying ship parts.
I don't think you're doing that right.
It was horrible times. You can still get it on Steam, and it plays in a window, and it's hard to see because it's all pixels.
I am both simultaneously interested in experiencing that and not.
I don't suggest it unless you're playing Windows 95.
Well, I hate to make us out to be, I set up that whole section with all of other Star Wars media, and my favorite non-film piece of media is also a video game.
Oh, nailed it.
And it is Knights of the Old Republic. And
nerd.
Yeah. And I love that game. I love just everything about it. It feels Star Wars, but it brought me into a whole... It really was the thing that introduced me to, there's Star Wars outside of the movies. So watching the story of Revan, who is up there on my list of favorite characters, doesn't trump Obi-Wan, but you will hear some strong opinions about that character in the future. But watching the story of Revan and all these really interesting, cool characters that BioWare came up with, and sticking them in the Star Wars universe was really the thing that led me to oh, well, all these characters, like, where are they in the... And there are books I can read about this as well, and, oh, man, now there are comic books out. Oh, and these ones kind of discuss stuff after the movies, and these ones discuss stuff before the movies, and getting into that is what kind of led me to the full obsession with Star Wars. But it's what led me to this community and the fandom, and so it holds that special place for me. Knights of the Old Republic. If you're a fan of RPGs and you haven't played it, or if you're a fan of Star Wars, just stick it on easy mode and play for the story. You promise you'll have a good time.
I do agree. It is a fantastic game.
And special shout out to the Old Republic MMO. It's not as good, but I met a great group of people on there, and that has also been a part of my continuing fandom.
What's something that you are looking most forward to?
What am I looking most forward to? I wrote down, because you asked me that question earlier, just to think about and stew over. And the very first thing that I wrote down was episode 9. People have opinions on The Last Jedi. People have opinions on the new cast and characters starting from The Force Awakens. I loved both movies, and I've really come to enjoy the characters that we've seen. Rey and Finn make it into my top 5 characters of all time for Star Wars. I really like, and I wasn't sure about it at first. You were there with me when the first time we watched the Last Jedi, and I was like, I wasn't sure. I'm not sure where this is going to go. And I felt that same sort of feeling the first time I saw The Force Awakens. But after spending enough time with these characters and kind of watching them develop, and yeah, there are, just like the original trilogy and just like the prequels, there are going to be parts that nothing's perfect, but I like the story, I like the characters, I like the direction that they're going, and I'm super stoked to see Rey go full Jedi. I want to see, Finn and Poe becoming the heroes that the previous generation became, so that people younger than me who are going to be starting their Star Wars experience with these films are going to be able to have, their icons. Just like, I grew up with the prequels being the kind of the first, that was Star Wars coming back, and that was my generation growing up, so I started, the first movies I watched were the original trilogy, but once I was an age to really enjoy things, I was Episode 1, Phantom Menace, came out in 99, so I was 8. That's like prime, Star Wars introduction time for your kids. And so I grew up with Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu. Those were my icons. And so, just like my dad got to see Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, so I'm excited to see where they're gonna go. Next to that, I wrote expanding the films to non-saga stories, and as of right now, we don't have anything film-wise or TV show-wise, for that matter, that doesn't tie in with the original story somehow. Rogue One and Han Solo, those are still, they're not saga films, but they still have direct connections to those stories. And I'm excited to take that love of the Star Wars universe that I have from video games, from comics, from novelizations, and things that aren't necessarily hardwired connected to the original trilogy, and see what else is out there in that galaxy, because there's so many stories out there to tell. Now I'm going to put another asterisk on that. I'm super stoked to see where we're going next. Stop announcing movies. Stop. There are 2 other trilogies that have been announced. You know, we got the Rian Johnson trilogy announced before we even knew if people liked The Last Jedi. And then we've got the Game of Thrones guys. They get their own trilogy. Don't overload us, you know? Don't flood us with, I want to see where it goes, but I don't want to have to mentally prepare myself for 9 movies in my head, you know? Just one at a time, please. One at a time. I had a hard enough time with the Solo coming out right after Last Jedi. Having that adjustment. If we're looking towards the future, you know, there's going to be a lot more Star Wars. And for good or ill, I'm super stoked about it. You got some opinions on the future? What are you looking forward to?
I wrote these questions, and this was probably the one that I had the hardest time with. It's not that I'm not excited about things that are coming out. Just I'm excited about all of them. What I wrote was more non-Jedi centered movies.
You know,
but
you hurt me to my core.
But I understand that the Jedi are an essential part of this whole fandom, and I'm probably not going to get a movie or show that doesn't have a Jedi show up at some point. If they ever do get around to making the Star Wars Underground or 1313, I'm sure there are going to be Jedi popping up left and right in the Underground. It's like I said earlier, why I liked Rogue One so much is we finally got to see regular Joes doing regular Joe things with blasters. And
you know that's fair. That's a fair point. That's a portion of the galaxy that's really worth exploring, you know. We've set up this mythos around space wizards, and they seem to be in everything. To your credit, I really did enjoy Rogue One for the same reasons, because I got my little Force user, you know, fix with Chirrut, and he was awesome. But you know, the core of the story was just about, you know, people having to live in this galaxy that's constantly in conflict, that don't have the ability to rely on magical powers. So yeah, no, that's going to be fun to see more of that.
The thing that I'm most looking forward to are the new costume designs in whatever medium comes out. In the last few years, I've become really into prop building and costume making. I do a lot of steampunk type stuff for Comic-Con, but that's kind of faded away. No one seems to care anymore, so no one wants me to make them stuff. Was one of the things I loved about Last Jedi with Rose Tico is now, Ian, your girlfriend has someone that represents her in the galaxy, and I mean, we're sitting next to a Rose Tico costume that I'm making for her right now. I have a Inferno Squad TIE Fighter, Inferno Squad TIE Fighter helmet sitting next to me on the ground here that's half done. I've got
several ongoing projects.
Yeah, I've got an E11 on the other side of me.
There are like 9 E11s in this apartment. Maybe not 9, maybe like 6.
There are 4, and only 2 of them are from the same manufacturer. The other ones I have a completely custom made one from PVC pipe. I'm using plans I found online. I have an old Hasbro toy one that has some modification parts added to it. Ruby's costuming group made a couple, and I kept buying those, and had a traveling job, and it's really fun having blasters in your checked luggage, or even going through security with a stormtrooper helmet. Those are good times. Yeah. Don't wear it, by the way. They get upset.
People get upset when you wear armor through security checkpoints.
Sure, it's a weird.
You'd think they're trying to like avoid that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So I'm excited about seeing what new things I can make, and hopefully there'll be more fat guy representation in the next movie, because all we're getting right now is pilots.
Oh yeah.
And
hey man, Fat guy pilots.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just like lose weight, but that's a lot of work.
I'm hoping that we're going to get at least one fat guy that lives to see the end of the movie.
Fat Jedi, please. Fat Jedi, please, for Ian. Thank you. I have a complete Imperial officer costume that you made for me from scratch, essentially, that I get lots of compliments on whenever I show up to. And some hate, also, a little bit. I remember when I saw the Force Awakens, you weren't with me for the Force Awakens premiere, but I was waiting for one of our other friends, Nick, who was kind enough to manage to get me a premiere ticket, and I'm there in full Imperial officer uniform, and for some reason at this particular venue, all of the employees were also allowed to dress up at the theater. And so they all kind of had costumes on too. And several people went up to me and asked me if I was security, because apparently just standing around in Imperial officer uniform, squinting, trying to find your friends is intimidating and makes people believe that you're protecting them from something or about to take them down. Because
the Empire represents order and security.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obvious.
Uh-huh. Order, security, genocide. This is the Imperial way.
I mean, we don't know that there was any genocide. Those were mining accidents.
Mining accidents that destroyed entire civilized planets, and you don't think there were any casualties at all?
Mining accidents. It's not Imperial's fault.
How do you mine an entire... Never mind. I stopped myself before I said something I knew he could counter. Look forward to many more of those conversations down the line. So, John...
Yes, Ian.
Yeah. With Star Wars being a thing that is constantly happening now, we have some news to go over.
I don't think so.
Yeah, there are things in the news. Now, it is our kind of first episode, and we're going to catch up on some stuff later on. And what I'd like to do is, in the future, kind of start off with the news and then get into the topics. But for today, I found 3 tidbits of news that range from mildly interesting to who cares. But I'd like to get your opinion on them.
Oh.
Now, we are in February, mid-February, at time of recording, and I just did a little bit of research and found these 3 bits of new information that have come out. First up, Rey. You familiar with Rey?
I believe that she is the pilot whose X-Wing was shot down on Jakku, whose helmet Rey, of no relation, wears.
You are both very correct, and speaking of the wrong Rey, but we're talking about the one who actually got the helmet after she crashed. You know,
I always wonder what happened with her.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to find out.
Oh, wow.
And you can ask her yourself. Because coming to the launch bay, Star Wars launch bay at Disneyland, Rey will be joining Chewbacca in the character light side meet and greet coming soon. So that's actually something that's kind of cool. If you go in there, I got a photo with Vader last time I was at Disneyland because I'm an adult, I promise. And they kind of, they bring you in and the character talks with you and like has a little mini conversation, get the photo taken, and you leave, and it's all very fun. So Rey is going to be joining the cast of characters there, which now include Chewbacca, Kylo Ren, and Darth Vader.
Do you think it will be a cast member in a Rey costume, or will we have to sit and meditate and think really hard and have a space collect call with her?
I'm gonna lean towards the cast member dressed as Rey, because as I unfortunately know quite well, not everybody has psychic abilities.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
Good for the Empire, though.
Yeah, well, you best watch yourself. I'm still trying.
No one can see what you're doing.
I'm thinking really hard at him. I'm trying to make his hat fly off.
I think you forgot the medium we're in right now.
No, I know full well what we're doing.
Oh my god, my hat flew off.
No.
And there's no way to verify that.
You don't need to make me feel better. I mean, I know I failed, but failure is how we learn. Mm-hmm. Yoda taught me that. He was a ghost. He used lightning to light a tree on fire. More news! Anthony Bresnikan of
Entertainment Weekly
fame has some interviews up with the casting crew of Solo, including some question and answer articles with Alden Eichenreich.
Isn't it Aldenreich?
I have, from the article that I was reading, it was spelled Eichenreich, but it probably is Aldenreich, and I'm going to feel like a moron, and I will be apologizing profusely to the actor on
Mr. Acharach.
Mr. Acharach, if you're listening, I will get your name correct next time we record, and I will apologize profusely to you. But we have a interview with him, Donald Glover, who's playing Lando, Emilia Clarke playing Kira, and I'm not sure if the article in question was just with Jon Kasdan or about this character, or if the interview included the actress playing the character, but there's some information on Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, L337, who is apparently a droid in the new Solo movie connected with Lando. So
you see her in the trailer.
Yeah, you do. I don't think we know anything about her. Yeah, I didn't know her name or anything like that.
I thoroughly choose to believe that somebody in the pre-production named her Leet with the L337 as a placeholder or a joke, and it just kept going.
Something tells me that was a Donald Glover influence. Like, they went up to him and be like, hey, what do you want your droid to be called? Like, if you had to name a droid that Lando had. And he'd
Lobot.
be like... Lobot was not a droid.
Heartbroken.
There's a very compelling comic miniseries done in the newest Marvel Comics 5-issue series called Lando. If you want to know more about what we're talking about, check that out. It is a heartbreaking story, and you'll never see Lobot the same again. Anthony Bresnikan, he does, it's almost exclusively his job to talk to people involved in Star Wars, and we've seen him live, exchanged words with him. Those words were he asked me if we were done with the booth at the bar we were sitting in, and
true.
I said yes, and then I kind of stood there awkwardly and nervously until I just walked away. Nice guy, excellent Star Wars reporter, and the Entertainment Weekly articles always have pretty cool pictures and really in-depth interviews, so it's good work. I recommend you guys check it out. The last bit of news here happened earlier in the month, but I really want to get your take on this one. The 17th annual AARP Awards honored The Last Jedi with the Best Movie for Grown-Ups award.
I would first like to point out that I linked you this article when it came out, of which I got no response for. I thought that was the most amazing name for an award, regardless of who wins.
Yeah, that is fair. I kind of want to name all awards now in a similar fashion. Let's have the Oscars open up with Best Actress for women over 40, and best sound design for children pre-K through 8th grade.
I agree.
Let's do it. Let's make it a thing. But one of the common arguments that we hear in Star Wars is it's a movie for 12-year-olds. And
it's a valid argument.
It is, and you'll hear it being invoked several times over the course of...
It's how I win most of my Star Wars arguments.
It's true. It's true. And it is a valid point. But it's interesting to me that The Last Jedi gets the Best Movie for Adults award until you really think about it. Because if you give it, more than a little thought, it's the same thing that we, spent the first hour talking to you guys about. It's that nostalgia factor. It's that we're invested in this, and the people who in AARP, these are people who grew up with the original trilogy and got to see this whole thing explode from one movie called Star Wars And, you know, it's no wonder that seeing some of these beloved characters kind of tie up their storylines in The Last Jedi, you know, it's pretty easy to see why that award would exist. I don't know why anybody would be mad at that. But now that I've said that, I'm sure somebody will let us know.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that just about does it for today, for our first podcast ever. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for the Hoth Topics podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, ask us some questions, give us some comments, be generally involved in what we're doing here, you can send us an email at hothpod@gmail.com. That's hothpod@gmail.com. And, you know, we want to hear from you. We want to hear how we can improve what we're doing, and get some ideas from you and everybody out there. And we're going to start setting up more social media things, give everybody a bigger option on platforms and how to reach us, and hopefully get the podcast out to you guys any way we can. So thank you very much. We love talking about Star Wars. We love doing this, and we're looking forward to a lot more. I'm Ian.
I'm here too.
That's Jon. And thank you for joining us for Hoth Topics, a Star Wars podcast.